The start of the week drifted by with a strange sensation, as if the clock hands were running ahead of schedule, and viewers wondered whether the broadcast had truly been moved up as rumored or if the team was merely testing their patience. Slippery headlines made the entire Fairmont Crest community tilt toward an oncoming storm. Behind the gleam of satin gowns and the flicker of camera flashes on the eve of the Winterfest Gala, the people who seemed neatly set in their places began to shift, letting new cracks thread deeper into every relationship. They said there would be only 4 episodes this week, yet that scarcity seemed to compress every detail, as though each minute on air had been packed tight with a nameless unease. On the same map of events, Ted unexpectedly invited Chenise to the winter ball, a decision that sounded featherlight at first, but was in fact a silent test for himself, for Nicole, for Leslie, and for the invisible boundaries in a community that prizes face and reputation as the finest armor. They all understood perfectly well that a gala could be a stage for announcing a strategy, stitching up a tear in one's honor, or even launching a new war behind well-mannered smiles. Within that setting, Chenise appeared as a rare point of balance. She was composed enough not to turn the invitation into a spark, and keen enough to catch the smallest chime from crystal glasses as paparazzi leaned in for better angles. All this time, she had been the person Derek leaned on when the letdown after his breakup with Ashley poured over him, like a long, steady rain. But there was no impulsive lover's heat between them. It was a pure trust born of knowing how to place a gentle hand on someone's pain without leaving a bruise. Derek, on the other hand, seemed to find a flutter with a colleague, something that formed slowly, like a smile arriving after a long night shift, the kind of feeling that shies away from showiness and prefers to grow in quiet. And Chenise, as if she could hear the footfall of a new romance nearing, kept her breathing even, refusing to step too quickly into the swirl of speculation. That is why Ted choosing Chenise for the seat beside him at Winterfest was not merely about bringing a colleague. It was a statement about a necessary safety distance, that he wasn't seeking a rash emotional escape, but testing whether someone steady could exist beside him without turning everything into a spectacle of soliciting sympathy. Yet that caution might be a fragile illusion once Nicole stepped to the edge of the story. She had agreed with Ted on something related to the festival while lighting a warning flare. Every choice has consequences, and not all of them are kind. Enough to halt at the threshold of the event. Nicole understands the rhythm of jealousy at Fairmont Crest. There are no screams, no blood, but it knows how to tear the surface with judging glances. She knows Leslie, knows how that woman safeguards face with a polite smile and a heart that does not relent. If Ted takes another woman by the hand down the red carpet, Leslie's feeling will not be a simple jealousy. It will be the rage of losing control, a refusal laid bare before the public, where every camera click is a cut. So Nicole stated the risk in advance. Do not let a gala turn into a courtroom where each person must testify against themselves. But the warning also carried a hint of freedom. If Ted opens the possibility of a companion, Nicole will not stand still in the role of warden over everyone's emotions. Having once told Carlton she wasn't ready to date, she began weighing the quiet patience of the man who seemed to know how to keep a flame low enough not to burn anyone. Meanwhile, Leslie was soothed by Anita, as part of a ritual that preceded every major event. Anita understood that Leslie's anger wasn't necessarily love. Often it was the fear of being replaced, of having her weight reduced in a tale where she had once inscribed her name on the first line. With calm poise, Anita reminded Leslie that her worth was not measured by who walked beside whom on the carpet, but reassurance is a bandage, not a cure. Leslie had always believed her rival was a woman from a lower rung like June, the waitress whose presence had unnerved her. But if the rival is a physical therapist like Chenise, the calculus changes. Chenise is not only beautiful. She is skilled, impeccably reputed, and possessed of a steadiness that can disarm. Leslie's jealousy, therefore, turns hazier and deeper. No longer jealousy over an easily dismissed opponent, but fear of a model replacement that society and Ted might readily embrace. All eyes on Winterfest did nothing to slow other stories. Elsewhere, Dany packed for Los Angeles, trying on outfits that would place her in a series of expensive frames for Forrester Creations. This was not only work but also a belatedly named honeymoon after a spontaneous wedding officiated by a drag queen. A marriage that had seemed a lark but became a lifeboat when Dany caught the flash of jealousy in Bill's eyes that had once splintered her. Andre is neither angel nor savior. He is a man who learned to tell the truth when he ran out of lies, who knew that the crack in the woman he loved could not be sealed with empty promises. So at the airport they called this trip their honeymoon, drawing a round period at the end of a chaotic prologue. They admitted their love not with soaring oaths but by choosing to stay together while others snickered and doubted. They even spoke of renewing vows, perhaps on New Year's Eve, not to flaunt a victory, but to calmly affirm that they had survived the trial by fire, and yet that joy stood on soft ground. Anita and Vernon, the two who knew Dany best, wanted a frank conversation with Andre. They were neither cruel nor domineering, but they had seen Dany's collapse after the Bill incident and would not tolerate a repeat. Andre understood their suspicion wasn't hatred. It was the parental love that always replaces intuition, with experience and faith with memory. He sat between them as if before a family ethics board, where every word carried weight. He did not promise perfection. He simply pledged not to use Dany's scars as a shelter for his mistakes. The great question hovered. If Dany learned her parents doubted her husband, which side would she stand on? Blood family or the man she chose? In Fairmont Crest, loyalty is a scale nearly impossible to read. Leaning one way could taint a family's honor in others' eyes, but refusing to decide means surrendering oneself to the tide. Just as trust was being rebuilt brick by brick, the past knocked with a call. Ashley confessed she had made a mistake. The words rang like a glass shattering in a banquet hall, brief, sharp, scattering fragments. Was Ashley seeking redemption, or reopening an old door to prove Dany's happiness was only a temporary error? Andre couldn't pretend he didn't hear, and if Dany found out, she would have to face the likelihood that her newly laid trust might not be strong enough to resist a sudden turn from a familiar shadow. The only thing that could save them now was consistency. Go to Los Angeles, finish the shoot, live their honeymoon as a healthy routine, and refuse to let someone else's misstep become a test of their marriage. Back at Winterfest, the parallel games grew hotter. After warning Ted, Nicole took a fresh look at Carlton. There was a wordless kinship between them. Both understood the price of self-restraint. Both had stood before doors they wanted to open but dared not push. Carlton did not press. He offered a kind of patience that calms and unsettles at once. If Nicole asked him to Winterfest, he would go, not as a victory over Ted, but as a chance to help her step out of zero gravity after a series of collisions. Ironically, that could be what made Ted lose his bearings in the very game he sought to control. Could the normally unflappable man keep his face carved in ice for the cameras? Or would a thin fracture run across his gaze at the sight of Nicole walking beside another? Everyone in Fairmont Crest knows that sometimes a half-second sidelong glance is enough for tabloids to script a tempest. On the map's edge, the family story of Martin and Smitty flared in its own way. No red carpets, no lenses, only hasty choices and the pride of parenthood. They clashed over how to raise a teenager. Between them stood Samantha, suddenly the focal point of a domestic referendum. In an impulsive moment, Martin announced that Samantha would stop her cat-sitting job at Chelsea's without consulting his daughter or husband. Smitty objected, but the deed was done. Behind that decision lay a simmering worry about the influences around Samantha. Grown-up love tangles spilling out of the kitchen and living room, leaving the sofa and the afternoons heavy with a mood that drags at a young soul. Kat, caught between her sister's war with Eva, chose the unexpected path. She slipped away to find Samantha, not to preach but to be an aunt in the gentlest sense of the word. She spoke of waiting for Tomas into her 20s, of patience born not of fear but of self-respect, of men like Nathan, grown in years but childish in responsibility, eager to turn intimacy into a trophy. Kat's counsel did not play on fear. It touched the pride of a girl learning to chart her emotions. But even the kindest intervention has a price. Martin could easily misunderstand, seeing a challenge to his authority where there was only a branch extended to keep Samantha from slipping. June, if she appeared, would likely side with Kat, because women who had to carve out places for themselves often know best which paths leave fewer wounds. While families tried to mend fissures, another mystery seeped in with the familiar scent of scandal. Did Joey have a secret child? And if so, who, Ashley or even Isaiah? Vanessa, newly freed from suspicion over a death that haunted for too long, stood before Joey. A man who confessed love but seemed trapped in a hall of hooks and old habits. Joey said he was divorced, his voice bristling, each word mined from rock. Longtime watchers know that in Fairmont Crest, divorce can be only a surface cut on a more complicated contract. Rumor had it Joey once married Ashley's mother, Jan, a laboring woman with no money and no clout. If true, divorce means alimony. Alimony means money. And money is always a leash in a world where each invoice serves as a map of power. From here the most unsettling thought germinates. If Joey was once Jan's husband, could he be Ashley's father, perhaps even Isaiah's? And if a new face appeared, a grown man bearing Joey's shadow, family lines would be redrawn at once, forcing old relationships to be renamed. As with every secret in Fairmont Crest, truth never arrives to a trumpet fanfare. It leaks quietly through small moments. A consoling hug held too long in a hospital corridor. A string of transfers that ran for years yet always ended in odd numbers. A memory box left misplaced, revealing a sequence of photos no outsider should see. With survival instincts honed by a season of accusation, Vanessa would never accept loving a man whose locked rooms she hadn't surveyed. But love, especially love born after absolution, has a habit of letting a few doors remain unopened. She stands at the edge, seeing Joey near and far at once, wondering whether her patience for him is compassion or a game of trading emotional safety for the illusion of peace. All these threads coil toward the Winterfest Gala, where each person chooses attire not only to look beautiful but to tell the story they want others to believe. Ted is immaculate as ever, though no one knows how many times he practiced the proper expression should he see Nicole with Carlton. Chenise wears the calm of a professional, repeating inward rules of self-soothing. Don't misread signals, don't exaggerate subtext, don't lose yourself in someone else's narrative. Nicole adds a faint, unshowy lipstick tint, the way she chooses to move slowly through change. Carlton walks beside her without taking her hand, without leaning in, letting the world see the space between them. The space of respect, and perhaps the space for whatever may come. Leslie arrives a beat late, but no one would dare say she's behind. She has always known how to turn delay into deliberate entrance. Anita remains close, a warm breath of sister, friend, mentor, reminding Leslie that victories here aren't won by making others lose. On another stretch of runway, Dany and Andre share a quiet laugh as the plane begins to taxi. They don't believe in miracles. They believe in good habits. Hold hands when you're shaky, remind each other of the goal when you drift. Keep the small promise that calls from the past won't make the future stutter. Below, Anita and Vernon watch with the familiar worry of parents who have sent a child into the world many times without ever feeling fully at ease. They cannot go with her. They can only wait and hope that what they told Andre is enough to form a soft fence around Dany's heart. After seeing Samantha, Kat returns carrying a blend of accomplishment and unease. She knows she chose rightly, placing the girl's growth above the power skirmishes of adults. But she also knows that in Fairmont Crest even good deeds can be misread under the harsh lights of ego. Martin may bristle. Smitty may brace. But Samantha, despite everything, will remember someone spoke to her in the language of respect. Perhaps that is the one thing children truly need so they won't grow into adults who are always afraid. Night closes on the drifting echoes of dance music, but the story does not end. Tabloids will parse every look, measure the distance between shoulders, and spin endless predictions about the phones that will buzz in the morning. Someone will swear they saw Ted uncomfortable when Nicole and Carlton traded a nod too tender. Someone will insist Leslie smiled sincerely at Chenise, while others will claim it was painted on. And the big questions remain fixed in place, like anchors holding a ship before the tide turns. What will Dany do if Ashley's confession becomes a drill into new trust? Is Andre resilient enough to turn a honeymoon into a rhythm of living rather than an event? How far will Nicole go with Carlton when the boundary between not ready and open is as delicate as mist? Will Ted be brave enough to accept he isn't the center of every decision? Can Kat stay patient enough to be the kind of aunt that is most kind, even at the cost of being misunderstood? And finally, if Joey's secret truly takes the shape of a child, how will that truth redraw the power genealogy of Fairmont Crest when it breaks open exactly where no one wants it to? This week holds only 4 episodes, yet each feels crammed with choices dangling by a thin thread. Fairmont Crest doesn't explode with a roar. It trembles with sighs. Each character learns to master a feeling, pay for a habit, and mend a clumsy stitch. Winterfest Gala is not merely a ball. It is a collective mirror reflecting the mingled light and darkness they have tried so hard to hide. When the lights go out, they leave with stories unsaid and answers unnamed, only to wake the next morning, amid hairdryers and coffee, and continue playing the roles they chose or bravely write new ones. And the viewers, as always, will scroll down and tap follow, not because they were promised shock, but because they have synced their heartbeat to a town that knows how to make even stillness smell like a brewing storm.